The rancher had always dreamed of owning a farm. For years he had worked tirelessly, saving every penny he could. He had grown up in the city where life was noisy and fast, and he often imagined a place where the air was clean, the mornings quiet, and the land stretched endlessly under the sky. He longed for a life where he could work with his hands, plant seeds, care for animals, and finally feel that he belonged somewhere. When he first saw the advertisement for a farm on the outskirts of a small town, he felt a strange mixture of excitement and disbelief. The land seemed almost unreal in the photos. Rolling hills, old wooden fences, and a farmhouse that had the charm of years gone by. It was everything he had imagined. After weeks of negotiations and a few sleepless nights worrying about finances, he finally bought the farm. It had cost him nearly all of his savings, but the thought of finally living his dream kept his heart light. He remembered the day he signed the papers. The previous owner, a kindly old woman, had handed him the keys with a soft smile. "Take care of it," she said. "This farm has a way of teaching people things they never expect." At the time, he had laughed, thinking she was just being sentimental. He hadn't realized just how true her words would be. The first morning on the farm was magical. He woke before sunrise, the sky painted with shades of pink and orange. He stepped outside and felt the chill of the morning air against his skin, a freshness he had never felt in the city. The land stretched before him, dotted with patches of green grass, trees, and the occasional wildflower. Birds sang from the branches, and somewhere in the distance a brook gurgled softly. It was peaceful in a way that made his chest tighten with happiness. He spent hours walking the property, imagining how he would plant vegetables, repair fences, and perhaps even raise a few animals. Every corner seemed full of possibilities, and every tree and rock felt familiar in a way he could not explain. As he explored the farmhouse itself, he felt a mixture of awe and apprehension. The house was old, with creaking floors and wooden beams that had weathered countless storms. Dust covered the corners and cobwebs hung from the ceilings, but to him it was beautiful. He ran his hands along the walls, imagining the laughter and stories that had once filled the rooms. He thought about the memories he would create here, the quiet evenings by the fireplace and the mornings with the sun streaming through the windows. For a moment he allowed himself to feel the joy of finally owning a place that was truly his. But as the day went on, he began to notice small, unsettling details. A door that seemed slightly ajar even though he was sure he had closed it. Footsteps that seemed to echo when no one was around. Shadows that moved across the walls in ways that made him blink twice. At first he told himself it was just the house settling, that the wind was playing tricks or that his imagination was too active. Yet a feeling of unease began to creep into his heart, a quiet whisper that made him glance over his shoulder more than once. Later that afternoon, he decided to clean the house thoroughly. He opened cupboards, dusted shelves, and swept the floors. He wanted everything to feel like home. As he moved through the rooms, he felt the weight of the silence. It was not a comforting silence, but one that seemed to hold secrets. In one corner of the house, he found a small locked door he had not noticed before. It was tucked behind a heavy curtain, almost as if someone had wanted it to remain hidden. Curiosity stirred within him. He tried the knob, but it would not turn. He paused, wondering why the previous owners had never mentioned it. He made a mental note to ask the neighbors about it tomorrow. Evening arrived, and with it came a soft, golden light that filtered through the windows. He sat by the fireplace, enjoying the warmth and the quiet. The farm was peaceful, he reminded himself, and he should not let his imagination create shadows where none existed. Yet sleep did not come easily that night. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the windows, made him sit up in bed and listen. He told himself he was tired and overthinking. He tried to imagine the farm as he had hoped it would be, a place of dreams and new beginnings. But somewhere in the back of his mind, a tiny voice whispered that something was different about this house, something that he could not yet understand. The next morning, he decided to explore more of the property. He walked through the fields, examined the fences, and made a list of repairs and improvements he wanted to make. The farm felt alive in the morning light, and he felt a renewed sense of purpose. But when he returned to the house to prepare breakfast, a strange feeling made him pause at the doorway. Something about the air inside the house felt heavier, as if it carried a weight he could not see. He shook his head, telling himself it was just the old house reacting to the morning chill. It was while he was checking the upstairs rooms that he noticed a door slightly open that he had never seen before. His heart skipped a beat. It was the small door he had discovered yesterday, the one hidden behind the curtain. Now it stood slightly ajar as if inviting him in. Hesitant but compelled by curiosity, he pushed it open. The room beyond was small and dimly lit, the air cold and still. It had clearly been unused for a long time. Dust covered the floor and old furniture lay scattered, as though someone had left in a hurry and never returned. And then he saw her. At first he could not understand what he was seeing. A young girl, her presence silent yet undeniable, seemed frozen in the stillness of the room. Shock coursed through him. His heart pounded and his mind raced with questions. Who was she? How had she come to be here? Why had no one mentioned her? His legs felt weak and he had to sit down on the edge of a dusty chair. He felt a swirl of emotions, fear, sadness, confusion, but above all, a deep desire to understand and help. After a few moments, he reached for his phone with trembling hands and called the local authorities. He explained the situation as clearly as he could, trying to remain calm despite the whirlwind of thoughts in his mind. While waiting for them to arrive, he could not stop thinking about the girl. Who was she? Where had she come from? His mind raced through endless possibilities, but none of them made sense. The quiet room seemed heavier than before, carrying a sense of mystery and untold stories. Neighbors arrived soon after the authorities were called. Some were curious, others concerned. They whispered among themselves, speculating about the girl and the rancher's discovery. The rancher listened quietly, feeling a mixture of embarrassment and gratitude. He did not want attention, nor did he want the girl's story to be reduced to gossip. All he wanted was to understand and do what was right. He felt a strange connection to the farm now, as though it had chosen him not just as its owner, but as a witness to something that demanded care and respect. The investigators moved with professionalism, asking questions, taking notes, and examining the room carefully. The rancher observed silently, feeling both helpless and responsible. Each question they asked stirred memories and emotions he had never expected to feel. The room seemed smaller now, but the weight of the discovery filled it with an almost sacred significance. He realized that owning a farm, a dream he had chased for years, had brought him here not just to live, but to witness, protect, and understand. By the end of the day, the authorities assured him that they would investigate thoroughly and handle the situation. They praised his quick thinking and calmness in such a shocking moment. The rancher felt a mixture of relief and continued concern. Relief that help had arrived, but concern for the mystery of the girl and what her story might reveal. He walked through the house again, touching the walls and remembering the excitement he had felt just 2 days ago. The house felt different now, heavier with secrets and responsibility, yet somehow more alive. That night he sat alone in the living room, staring at the flickering fire. The farm was quiet once more, but the weight of the day lingered. He thought about his journey to this place, the hard work, the sacrifices, and the dream he had finally achieved. And he realized that life had a way of presenting surprises, sometimes joyful, sometimes bewildering, and sometimes deeply challenging. He did not yet know the full story of the girl, but he understood that his life had changed in ways he could not have imagined. The farm was no longer just a dream. It was a place where lives intersected, where mysteries demanded care, and where he had been called to act with empathy and courage. As he closed his eyes that night, he felt a quiet determination settle within him. Whatever the future held, he would face it with honesty, respect, and an open heart. The farm had given him a home, but it had also given him a lesson in responsibility, humanity, and the unexpected paths life sometimes takes. He knew that tomorrow would bring answers, perhaps more questions and a continued journey of understanding. But for now, he allowed himself to rest, carrying in his heart the weight of discovery and the fragile hope that he could make a difference in the story that had begun in this quiet, mysterious house. The next morning, the rancher woke early, as he had done every day since arriving at the farm. The sun had barely risen, but he felt a restless energy within him. The events of the previous day lingered in his mind like a persistent shadow. He could not stop thinking about the girl he had discovered, and the questions her presence raised. Who was she? How had she come to be on his property? And most importantly, what could he do to help? The peaceful promise of the farm felt different now. It was no longer just a dream of quiet days and rolling hills. It had become a place of responsibility, a stage for events far beyond anything he had imagined. Soon, the authorities returned. The police had spent the night reviewing records, visiting neighbors, and coordinating with officials in nearby towns. They approached the rancher with careful, measured steps, their expressions serious but kind. "We want to thank you for your quick action yesterday," said the lead investigator. "Your presence of mind may have prevented further complications. Now we need to gather information to understand the situation fully." The rancher nodded, still feeling a mixture of nervousness and determination. He was ready to cooperate, ready to help the girl in any way he could. The investigators began by asking him questions about the farm. Had anyone been on the property recently? Had he noticed any unusual activity before moving in? The rancher shook his head. Everything had seemed normal until the day he found the girl. "It is an old house," he explained. "I thought the creaks and shadows were just part of that. I never expected this." He trailed off, unable to find words that could fully capture the shock and sadness he had felt. As the investigator spoke with him, the rancher noticed neighbors gathering at a safe distance. Some looked curious, others concerned. Whispers floated in the air, carrying speculations and theories. He felt uncomfortable with the attention but reminded himself that it was not about him. It was about understanding and helping the girl. He felt a deep responsibility to respect her story, to ensure it was handled with care. While the authorities worked, the rancher wandered through the farmhouse, revisiting the room where he had made the discovery. The space felt different now, quieter and more solemn. He ran his hand along the walls, touched the old furniture, and noticed details he had missed before. A small window letting in soft light, dust patterns that suggested long periods of neglect, and faint signs of personal belongings left behind. These clues hinted at a story, a life that had intersected with the farm in ways he could not yet fully understand. The investigators eventually invited the rancher to sit as they discussed their plan. They explained that they were trying to identify the girl and trace her origins. "We will handle this sensitively," said the lead investigator. "We will speak to family members, local authorities, and anyone who might have knowledge. Your role is important because you were the first to discover her and acted responsibly." The rancher nodded, feeling a sense of relief that professional hands were now guiding the process. Yet he could not shake the personal connection he had already developed. He felt as if the farm itself had placed him here for a purpose larger than himself. Days passed and the investigation slowly unfolded. The rancher found himself drawn into it, not as an authority but as a witness and caretaker. He began documenting details about the house, the property, and the circumstances surrounding his discovery. He wanted to ensure that no small detail was overlooked, that the story of the girl would be treated with accuracy and respect. In the evenings, he would sit by the fireplace writing notes, thinking through possibilities and reflecting on the lessons life had unexpectedly placed before him. During this time, he learned a little more about the girl. She had come from a distant city and had a gentle, quiet nature. She loved reading and often spent hours imagining stories and adventures. Her family had been worried about her for some time, searching for clues about her whereabouts. The rancher felt a deep sense of empathy as he learned these details. He imagined her laughter, her curiosity, her hopes, and her dreams. He realized that for her, the farm had been a place of uncertainty and perhaps even fear, and he wanted to do everything he could to restore a sense of safety and belonging. The rancher also reflected on himself. He had come to the farm seeking peace, a quiet life of work and fulfillment. Instead, he had found a complex situation that demanded emotional strength, patience, and compassion. He realized that dreams were not always simple. Sometimes they carried challenges that tested character and resolve. But he did not feel burdened. On the contrary, he felt honored. The farm had chosen him in a way to witness a story that required care, and he was determined to rise to the occasion. As the investigation continued, neighbors began to offer support in small but meaningful ways. Some brought meals, others offered advice about the farm, and a few shared stories of past events they remembered. Their kindness reminded the rancher that communities could provide strength in times of uncertainty. It also helped him see the importance of human connection, of empathy and understanding, even in situations that seemed distant or mysterious. The farm was no longer just a personal dream. It had become a shared space where lives intersected, lessons were learned, and hope could be nurtured. Weeks later, the authorities made significant progress. They identified the girl's family and coordinated a reunion that was handled with the utmost care. The rancher was invited to participate, not as a formal authority, but as someone who had been present at a pivotal moment in her story. When he met her family, he saw the relief and gratitude in their eyes. They thanked him repeatedly for his quick thinking and compassion. He felt a mix of humility and pride. The farm had brought him here not just as an owner, but as a witness, protector, and facilitator of healing. Through this process, the rancher learned more about himself than he had ever expected. He realized that life's unexpected events could teach patience, empathy, and resilience. He understood that ownership of land was not merely about property or wealth. It was about responsibility, stewardship, and the capacity to respond with care when needed. The farm had given him joy, yes, but it had also given him lessons in humanity, reminding him that every place holds stories, and every person deserves compassion. As the weeks turned into months, the rancher began to settle into a new rhythm on the farm. He repaired fences, planted crops, and tended to animals, all while carrying the memory of the girl and the events that had unfolded. The farmhouse, once simply a structure, now felt like a living space filled with history and meaning. Each corner, each room told a story, and he felt that his role was to honor those stories, to nurture the land and the lives that intersected with it. The girl's family remained in contact, expressing gratitude for the rancher's care and concern. Occasionally they visited the farm, sharing stories and memories, and helping him understand more about her life and personality. These moments brought warmth to the rancher's heart. He realized that even in situations of confusion and uncertainty, human kindness could create bridges, heal wounds, and restore hope. Reflecting on everything, the rancher came to see the farm as more than a dream realized. It had become a place of growth not just for the land but for himself and for the lives he touched. He had discovered courage he did not know he possessed, patience in the face of uncertainty, and a profound sense of empathy. The farm was now a symbol of his journey, a place where dreams could be fulfilled, mysteries could be approached with care, and life could be lived with purpose and understanding. Evenings on the farm became moments of quiet reflection. The rancher would watch the sun dip below the hills, painting the sky with hues of orange and gold. He would think about the events that had brought him here, about the girl whose story had intersected with his own, and about the lessons he had learned. Life, he realized, was unpredictable, but it also offered opportunities for growth, understanding, and connection. The farm had taught him that dreams are never just about personal fulfillment. They are also about the responsibilities, challenges, and joys that come from caring for others and respecting the stories that unfold around us. One quiet night, as the wind rustled through the trees and the farmhouse settled into its familiar creaks and whispers, the rancher felt a profound sense of peace. He knew the future would hold more challenges, more questions, and perhaps more surprises. Yet he also knew that he was prepared to face them with an open heart and a steady hand. The farm had given him more than land. It had given him perspective, compassion, and the understanding that every life, every story deserves respect and care. The rancher smiled softly, feeling the weight of the past weeks and the hope for the days to come. He had come to the farm seeking a simple dream, but he had found something far deeper, a life enriched by experience, a heart strengthened by empathy, and a place where he could continue to grow alongside the land, the community, and the lives that touched his own. The farmhouse stood quietly around him, a witness to the journey he had undertaken, and he felt grateful for every step, every discovery, and every lesson that had led him to this moment of quiet, meaningful reflection.